10 years ago, on the last day, he left his director's office with a worn-out leather briefcase and an indescribable feeling of unease. Robert William never imagined that life after 60 would be a return to leisure and perhaps even fulfillment. That day, after 35 years working for an import-export company, he entered retirement, feeling cut off from his main lifeline. Irregular eating habits and a feeling of uselessness gradually gnawing away at his once sharp mind. The first few weeks at home were a long, drawn-out ordeal. Waking up late, watching television aimlessly, he realized that idleness would erode his health, and he pondered what older adults should do to protect their health. With that thought in mind, he devised a perfect plan for achieving optimal health. Mr. Robert William walked slowly along the familiar path, his feet, marked by the passage of time, gently touching the carefully arranged pebbles on either side. Morning dew still clung to the young tea buds, sparkling like thousands of tiny diamonds in the rosy dawn light. At 65, each step he took carried the calmness of someone who had lived more than half a century. Yet his eyes were as bright as ever, the eyes of someone who knew he was living each moment to the fullest. 10 years ago, on the last day, he left the director's office with his worn leather briefcase and an indescribable feeling of uncertainty. Mr. Robert William never imagined that life after 60 could be so fulfilling. That day, after 35 years with the import-export company, he entered retirement feeling as if he had been cut off from his main lifeline. The first few weeks at home were a long, drawn-out ordeal, waking up late, aimlessly watching television. Irregular eating habits and a growing sense of uselessness gnawing away at his once sharp mind. His wife, Miriam Robert, was the first to notice this worrying change. "Robert William," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder one late autumn afternoon, "you can't let your life end when you've only just begun a new chapter. You have so much to do, so much to live, so much to give." Her words were like tiny seeds falling into the barren soil of his soul. And then, a trip back to his hometown to visit his cousin in the northern hills changed everything. There, he met Robert Wasson, his 72-year-old cousin, who still went to the fields every day, tending to his ancient tea plantation with calloused hands but eyes shining with vitality. Robert Wasson was not only healthy, but also sharp-minded, cheerful, and full of enthusiasm for his work, despite his advanced age. "I don't work for a living anymore," Robert Wasson said, as the two brothers sipped green tea on the porch of their wooden house. "I work to live. Every day I wake up to something to do, someone to see, something to look forward to. That's what keeps me alive." Robert William. That statement flashed through Robert William's mind like lightning. 3 months later, he decided to buy a 2-hectare hillside near his wife's hometown where the climate is cool year-round to grow organic tea. Initially, Miriam, Robert, and their children strongly objected. "Dad, you're 63 and 23, his son exclaimed anxiously. But Robert William was resolute. "I'm not going to work like I did when I was young. I'm going to work like a 60-year-old, slowly, moderately, but persistently and meaningfully." The first 2 years were a journey of continuous learning. Robert Williams spent the first 3 months not planting trees, but listening to the land. He woke up at 5 o'clock each morning, not out of obligation, but because he discovered that sunrise was a priceless gift that his busy youth had caused him to miss. He walked around the hills, observing the wind direction, the soil moisture, and the changing light with each season. He meticulously recorded everything in a small notebook, a habit from his business days. But now, the entries were no longer sales figures, but a diary of the earth and sky. Today, there is a lot of dew. The soil is just right, suitable for tea to sprout new buds. The northeast wind is coming. We need to cover the tea roots with straw to keep them warm. Waking up early became a sacred ritual for him. Science has proven that older people naturally tend to go to bed and wake up early according to the circadian rhythm that changes with age. Instead of fighting this with sleeping pills or staying up late watching movies like many of his peers, Robert William embraced it and turned it into an advantage. At 5 o'clock in the morning, while the city was still asleep, he would meditate for 15 minutes on a large rock overlooking the valley. No complicated posture needed, simply sitting up straight, breathing deeply, and observing his breath. Observing the sounds of nature, observing the thoughts that pass through his mind, without clinging. Those 15 minutes of silence were a spiritual medicine that helped him start the day with peace of mind, significantly reducing the anxiety he had suffered after retirement. At 6 o'clock, he began his gentle exercise. Instead of jogging or high-intensity gym workouts, activities that could damage his knees and spine at his age, he opted for a self-designed exercise routine. 20 minutes of gentle wrist, ankle, and knee rotations, stretching, and bending. He particularly focused on balance exercises, standing on one leg for 30 seconds, then switching, knowing that falls are the greatest danger for older adults. He also practiced exercises to strengthen his core muscles to support his spine, a key factor in allowing him to work on the hill all day without back pain. At 7 o'clock, his breakfast always followed the principle of eating breakfast like a king: a bowl of noodles with green vegetables and a small amount of lean meat, or oatmeal, cooked with pumpkin and chia seeds, accompanied by a boiled egg and a banana. He learned from his nutritionist that after 60, the body needs more protein to combat sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, but at the same time, sugar and refined carbohydrates must be reduced to control blood sugar. So, he switched entirely to brown rice, oats, and nuts. In particular, he drinks 2 liters of water a day, real challenge since thirst diminishes with age, but he sets an alarm on his phone to drink a small glass every 2 hours. At 8 o'clock, he begins his main work of the day, tending the tea garden, but this isn't the strenuous labor of his youth. He divides the work into short blocks: 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, and always listens to his body. When his back starts to ache, he stops, stretches, takes a deep breath, and then continues. When picking tea, he doesn't try to pick as quickly or as much as possible, but focuses on the quality of each bud, selecting only those that meet the standards. Picking gently so as not to damage the plant, The work became a form of meditation, each tea-picking motion a breath, each row of trees a lesson in patience. More importantly, he didn't work alone. He hired two locals, 45-year-old Anna and 32-year-old Tomas, not to replace him, but to work alongside him and learn together. At lunchtime, the three of them sat under a banyan tree, eating their packed lunches and chatting about everything under the sun. These conversations were an indispensable social vitamin, an element studies have shown to be as important as nutrition and exercise for the health of older adults. Loneliness after retirement is a silent killer. It increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and even shortens lifespan. Robert William understood this, so he always built connections with fellow workers, with villagers, with old friends through weekly video calls. At noon, he rested completely. This is an unwavering principle. No working in the scorching sun, no rushing lunch when tired. He rested in a hammock under the eaves, listening to the wind rustling through the leaves, dozing off for about 20 minutes. Short afternoon naps, power naps, are scientifically proven to improve memory, boost the immune system, and lower blood pressure in the elderly. But he always limited it to 20 to 30 minutes to avoid falling into a deep sleep that would leave him feeling dizzy upon waking. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he resumed lighter work, sorting harvested tea leaves, instructing Anna and Tomas on processing techniques, or checking the homemade drip irrigation system made from recycled plastic bottles. This light manual labor, picking leaves, arranging, helped maintain the flexibility of the small joints in his hands, preventing rheumatoid arthritis. At the same time, the process of carefully observing each tea bud, distinguishing between those that meet the standards and those that do not, is an excellent exercise for visual perception and concentration, key elements for maintaining cognitive health. Finishing work. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he finished work. He never worked overtime, a bad habit from his office days that he was determined to break. At 65, his body needed time to recover. After work, he spent 30 minutes walking leisurely around the hill, not for exercise, but to end the workday in a ritualistic way, like the Japanese bow after a meeting. This helped his mind shift from work to rest, reducing accumulated stress. At 6 o'clock in the evening, his dinner was always light: vegetable soup, steamed fish, and a small amount of brown rice. He followed the principle of eating like a beggar, little and early, at least 3 hours before bed, so that his digestive system wouldn't have to work too hard at night. After dinner, he video called his children in the city, his son an engineer, his daughter a teacher, sharing about a newly bloomed flower on the hill, about a strange bird visiting his tea garden. These conversations not only connect the family, but also provide an opportunity for him to exercise his memory, recalling details of a day's events to recount. At 8 o'clock in the evening, he reads, not scrolling through his phone or watching noisy television. The blue light from electronic screens disrupts melatonin production, the hormone that regulates sleep. Instead, under soft yellow light, he reads books on Eastern philosophy, the history of tea ceremony, or classic novels. Reading printed books at a slow pace, with pauses for reflection, is excellent exercise for the brain, helping to create new neural connections and prevent Alzheimer's disease. At 9 o'clock, he turns off the lights and goes to bed. His bedroom is always dark, cool around 22 degrees Celsius, and quiet, ideal conditions for deep sleep. He didn't use sleeping pills, but instead practiced a sleep ritual, turning off all electronic devices, listening to soothing classical music for 5 minutes, and breathing deeply in a 4-7-8 rhythm. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 7 seconds. Exhale for 8 seconds, a technique that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, putting the body into a relaxed state, ready for sleep. 3 years later, Robert Williams' tea garden yielded its second harvest. His Hill Dawn tea, with its refreshing flavor and deep, sweet aftertaste, was sought after by tea connoisseurs in the city. But his greatest success wasn't the revenue, though it provided him with a comfortable life and 2 employees, but his own health and well-being. At his most recent routine health checkup, the doctor was surprised by the results. His blood pressure was stable at 120/80. His fasting blood sugar was 5.2 mol or L. His good cholesterol HDL had increased by 15%. Compared to 3 years ago, and most notably, his muscle mass had only decreased by 3% compared to his peers, while the average for people over 60 decreases by 8-10 per decade. When the doctor asked for his secret, Mr. Robert Williams smiled. "Doctor, don't have any secrets. I just learned how to live slowly, deeply, and meaningfully at this age." He shared the golden principles he had learned. First, work with purpose, not just to survive. At 60, we don't need to work 8 hours straight anymore. But we need work to do, work that brings a sense of usefulness, connects us with the community, and nourishes the soul. This could involve teaching neighborhood children math, tending a community garden, writing memoirs, or simply cooking delicious meals for the family. The work should be manageable, not exhausting, but challenging enough to prevent mental and physical stagnation. Second, exercise strenuously. Older adults need at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week, as recommended by the WHO, but it's crucial to choose the right type of exercise: brisk walking, swimming, tai chi, gentle yoga, activities that put minimal strain on the joints. It's especially important to combine 3 types of exercise: aerobic walking, strength training lifting light weights, push-ups, and balance training standing on one leg. Each protects a different aspect of health. Third, nutrition is medicine, but it shouldn't be a form of extreme dieting. After 60, the body needs more protein 1-2 g body weight day, more fiber 25-30 g day, and more antioxidants from colorful vegetables. Reduce salt intake to under 5 g day to control blood pressure, and reduce sugar intake to under 25 g day to control blood sugar. But most importantly, eating should be enjoyable. Mr. Williams still occasionally eats rice noodles with beef on weekends, and still enjoys a small glass of wine when he has distinguished guests, as long as it's in moderation and not too often. Social connection. Fourth, social connection is the vaccine against disease. Loneliness increases the risk of premature death by 26, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, proactively maintain relationships, join a wellness club, chat with vendors at the market, call old friends once a week. If you live far from your children and grandchildren, learn how to use Zoom or Facebook to meet up. Weekly quality connections are more important than quantity. Fifth, sleep is the most powerful regenerative medicine. People over 60 often sleep less and wake up more easily. That's normal. But you still need to ensure 7–8 hours of sleep each night. If you have trouble sleeping, avoid caffeine after p.m., take a warm bath before bed, and create a consistent sleep ritual. Don't worry, if you wake up in the middle of the night, read a light book or listen to soothing music, and then go back to sleep. Sixth, a sharp mind needs daily exercise. The brain, like muscles, atrophies if not used. Learn something new every day. Learn new English vocabulary, play chess online, solve crossword puzzles, or learn to play the piano. Challenge yourself with tasks that require critical thinking, like planning a self-guided trip to stimulate your brain to make new connections. Saturday, accept and love your changing body. This is perhaps the most important lesson. At 60, we can't run as fast as 20 or work through the night as we could in our 30s. But we have wisdom, composure, and a deeper capacity to appreciate life. Listen to your body. Rest when you're tired. Stop when you're in pain instead of forcing it to obey your will. Love the wrinkles on your face. They are a map of the years you've lived to the fullest. One late autumn afternoon, as the last tea buds swayed in the cool breeze, Robert Williams sat in his self-made wooden chair, sipping freshly roasted tea. Anna and Tomas had long since gone home, leaving a quiet stillness enveloping the tea hills. But he didn't feel lonely. In the quiet, he heard the birds returning to their nests, the rustling of leaves, and the steady rhythm of his own breathing, the breathing of a man who had learned to live in harmony with nature and with himself. The phone rang. His daughter was video calling. "Dad, today I taught my students to write poetry about autumn. I miss you and the tea hills so much." Her voice echoed through the small screen. Robert Williams smiled, turning the camera around the hill. "Autumn here is so beautiful. The tea leaves are turning a pale yellow. The dew comes earlier. I plan to pick some dried tea next week to send to you and the grandchildren." The conversation lasted 15 minutes, just enough to connect, not too long to tire him out. After hanging up, he didn't feel the emptiness he usually felt after calls with his children. Instead, he felt the warmth of family, an invaluable source of spiritual energy. At 9 o'clock in the evening, as darkness enveloped the valley, Robert Williams lay in bed, listening to the crickets chirping on the porch. He no longer worried about the fleeting aches and pains in his joints. He knew they were a normal part of age, and he had ways of caring for them. Morning warm compresses, gentle exercises, and most importantly, not letting them control his mood. Before drifting off to sleep, he thought of what his 72-year-old cousin, Robert Wasson, had said to him years ago, "Old age is not the sunset of life, Robert William. It is the dawn of a different way of living, slower, deeper, and more meaningful." And he understands he is living in that dawn. Waking up each day on the tea hill, with meaningful work, warm connections, a healthy body, and a peaceful soul, he knows he has found the answer to the greatest question of old age. How to live each day to make it a more meaningful one. Not by running away from age, but by embracing it with gratitude. Not by working like young people, but by working like experienced people, slowly, but deeply, humbly, but persistently. Not by searching for happiness far away, but by cultivating it in each present moment, in the morning breath, in each tender tea bud, in the smile of the laborers, in the laughter of his grandchildren through the phone screen. At 5 o'clock the next morning, as the first rays of dawn appeared behind the mountains, Mr. Robert William became accustomed to the natural rhythm of the earth and sky. He stepped out onto the porch, took a deep breath of the fresh, cool air, and smiled. A new day began, not the burden of passing time, but the gift of continuing life. At 65, Mr. Robert William had learned the simplest yet most profound lesson: health is not a destination, but a journey of small choices each day, repeated with awareness and love. And on that lush green tea hill, amidst the morning mist and birdsong, he continued that journey, calm, steadfast, and filled with gratitude for being alive, for working, and for loving in the most glorious twilight of his life. Protecting the health of the elderly. As elderly men and women approach retirement, Robert William never imagined that life after 60 would be a return to leisure and even fulfillment. He didn't think he would enter retirement feeling cut off from his primary source of income. The first few weeks at home were a long and difficult challenge. Indeed, he felt disoriented, his thoughts wandered, he woke up late, watched television aimlessly, his eating habits became erratic, and a feeling of uselessness gradually gnawed at his once sharp mind. He realized that idleness was degrading his health, and he thought about what older people should do to protect their health. With that in mind, he devised a perfect plan to achieve optimal health. He succeeded in his endeavor, and his health improved dramatically. He was secretly grateful for what he had. If you find this story meaningful and beneficial to people and society, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you very much.